So let's get to the TDE commands. As I mentioned, there are pro-util commands that you're going to use to work with TDE, and they all begin with this prefix. They're pro-util e-policy commands. There are 4 of them, and I'm going to go through what they are. So we've got pro-util e-policy manage, and then you can see the syntax there. There's a lot more to the syntax, as we'll see. But in general, it's object type, verb, object name, where object type is table index lob or area. And this is for managing policies, both object policies and database policies. Next up is ePolicy scan, which deals with a single object, and it will tell you the status of the blocks in that object. So it'll give you counts of how many are encrypted under each policy, or if the object is encrypted at all. Next is ePolicy view, which again works with a single object, and it allows you to list the policy or policies for that object. And the last one, I never use, it's just online documentation, basically, at the command line. It just gives you a list of ciphers that you can use, and they're cipher numbers, because that's how you specify a cipher in the commands. So first up, ePolicy manage. On the next slide, I'll show you the syntax diagram. But so it's got a lot of verbs, a lot of different options that you can specify. The common ones are encrypt, which creates the initial policy on an object. Then you've got update, which will read all of the existing blocks in the object and encrypt those. You've got rekey, which will give you a new key with the same cipher as the existing policy. And then you've got the cipher verb, which will give you a new policy under a new cipher. So if you want to go from triple DES to AES 128, you would use that. Just a note, again, not too intuitive, the encrypt verb doesn't actually encrypt data. It creates a policy and it creates a key for use with that policy in the key store. And that determines what happens with future block writes on the object. Okay, it doesn't deal with your existing data. That's what the update verb is for. Again, here's pro-util ePolicy manage. This is actually, you likely won't see it as being this complicated. This is from the 12.7 DLC, so you've got a lot of HSM specific commands that have been added recently, but most of this you're going to see in your release. Just a quick note about encrypting type 1 areas. They have to be encrypted offline. But most of the rest of TDE you can implement online without downtime or very little. So next up is the pro-util ePolicy scan. Note that it reads every block in the object that you're scanning. So there's, if it's a very large object, you're going to have some I/O impact there. And it reports how many blocks are encrypted under each policy. So here's an example of a customer table. It's table number 4. It's got a current policy of AES 128, a previous policy of DES, and this tells you how many blocks there are and how many are encrypted under each cipher. It's the asterisk I put there because it's stretching the truth a little bit. As I said on an earlier slide, not all blocks get encrypted, but it's kind of fudging that, and it's making the numbers add up to every single block in the object, even though it's not actually doing that. Anyway, the ones that need to be encrypted are encrypted. That's the point. Next, we've got ePolicy view. This is, it doesn't look at the blocks in the object. It looks at the policies in the policy table for that object and tells you what they are. So it's a lightweight command because it's just reading 1 or 2 records. So here's an example of an object with 2 policies. Here's an example of an object that's not encrypted at all. And here's the ePolicy info. Literally all it does is write to standard out a list of the ciphers that are available in your release for the database master key and for object keys and also for binary dump keys. although it's doing this and it's completely generic, it does require you to specify a database. I don't know why. Just a note here, the commands that I've shown you so far and the ones that we're going to see in the implementation section, I've simplified them a little bit. These are privileged commands. You have to be authorized to use them. And it depends on how you initially configured TDE, whether you're going to use a more locked down version of the command. There's an optional parameter on these commands, which is -passphrase. If you type the command interactively, just starting at proutil and then end it with -passphrase, it'll prompt you at the command line to enter the TDE admin passphrase to prove that you're authorized to change encryption policies. That obviously becomes a problem when you're trying to implement at scale. You're not going to be, typing hundreds or thousands of commands at the command line. You're going to want to automate that with scripting. So what you can do is you can pass the passphrase through standard in to the command, for example, with a pipeline. So that could be catting a file, or that could be, if it's in a shell script, echoing the value of a variable. Neither of these, in my opinion, are a great solution because you're either exposing that sensitive passphrase in the file system or in a script and in the process list for that echo command. So I don't know of a better way to do this. Maybe there is one. And hopefully this will get better in the future. As Rob Straight mentioned yesterday, there's work on integrating with secrets management systems, and hopefully we'll see that in TDE.